Happiness is the knowing of our own being as it is. That's what happiness is, the knowing of being. And the common name for the knowing of being is I. We call ourselves I am, and the religious name for the same experience is God. When we overlook the knowing of our own being, or we mix our own being up with a cluster of thoughts and feelings, we obscure the true nature of I, and therefore we obscure happiness. And that is why the separate self is always unhappy, or always seeking happiness. Because the separate self is a limitation on our essential nature of pure being. It's the I am the body as opposed to I am. The mind plunges into its source and tastes its true nature. And then we walked on round and we walked back down through the red light district, through one of the streets. And all the windows on the side, some of the curtains are drawn and some of them are open, with almost naked women advertising and opening the door and like this. Why are people going there? What are people looking for in that experience, in this merging? There is a kind of loss of identity. There is a dissolution of the sense of separateness. That's all people are going there for. It's not, do you honestly think it's for a few pleasant sensations? No, it's not. It's because in that moment of merging, in that moment of, in this case, it's not heightened fear, it's heightened sensation. In that moment, the separate self is expanded beyond its limits. There is this collapse of separation, this merging, this apparent merging. And in that moment, exactly the same experience takes place. The finite mind plunges into its source. In all these three cases, the bungee jump, the church, the red light district, it's the same experience. In fact, it's the only experience the separate self ever seeks, is the loss of its separate identity. It's not possible for the separate self to seek anything else. Every desire the separate self has is only the desire to cease being separate. And people find that experience in different ways. And in fact, this is this fear of death that people try to induce in the bungee jump is actually what occurred to Ramana Maharshi spontaneously. His awakening was precipitated by exactly the same experience, although he didn't have to go bungee jumping to have the experience. He just felt spontaneously that he was going to die. And his body even took up the position and went through some of the symptoms of physical death. And then in that moment, there was this, in his case, this spontaneous inquiry into his true nature. But it was precipitated by the fear of death. It's like a rubber band. Attention, attendere. Every time the awareness assumes the form of the finite mind, it limits itself. It freely limits itself. And it's a sacrifice. It has to limit itself in order to appear as the world. But it loses its freedom in doing so. It loses its innate peace and happiness because it has limited itself. So in order to appear as manifestation, it has to sacrifice itself. It turns away from itself. It seems to overlook the knowing of its own being. And with the overlooking of its own being, the peace and happiness that is innate in itself, or rather that is itself, gets veiled. That's why the separate self longs for happiness, because the separate self is only infinite consciousness to which a limit has been imposed. That's why all selves know the experience of happiness. It is a memory. We all How would it be possible to seek happiness if we didn't know what it tasted like? So at the heart of all separate selves, there is this memory of peace, of love, of happiness, which we often associate with an experience in childhood. But it's not really a memory of something in the past. It's a memory of something that is present now, but is covered over by superimposed beliefs and feelings. Everything the separate self does is done only to divest itself of these limitations.
So then it should be possible to achieve this goal here, within the finite self.
Yes, it's available to everybody, because everybody knows themselves as I. The essential nature of that I is infinite awareness, and it has become veiled by beliefs and feelings. There is infinite consciousness, and there is infinite consciousness with a veil of thoughts and feelings superimposed onto it that make it seem finite. With this veiling of our true nature, the peace and happiness of our true nature is lost. And that is why this veiled awareness, which is the separate self, longs to return.
So I thought we should get rid of the veil completely in order to return to the infinite mind.
That's it. We don't even need to get rid of the veil. We just need to turn our attention towards the essential nature of what we call I. Most of us, when we say I, we think of a collection of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and perceptions. But if we really turn our attention towards I, we just find the experience of being aware. We don't find a collection of thoughts and feelings. I is just the experience of being aware. And that experience is available to everybody, irrespective of their intelligence, their health, their wealth. It's available equally to everybody, because everybody knows the experience I. The experience I, or I am, refers to our essential being. That is our being that is not mixed with anything other than itself, such as a thought or a feeling. It is totally available, 24/7, to everyone.